Welcome back to the Thrive Podcast. Today's episode is coming to you from Las Vegas. I made the trip down here to the GOHUNT offices and warehouses to record the greatest e-scouting podcast ever, Part 2, with Brady Miller and Trail Kreitzer. This podcast did not disappoint. I love sitting down with these two guys. They geek out on hunt planning as much as I do. This episode is currently in the editing pipeline, so stay tuned. It's going to be a good one. The greatest e-scouting podcast part 1 is available on the Big Hunt Guys podcast, and I've included a link in the text description below. This podcast is still trending as one of GOHUNT's most popular podcasts. While I was there, I was able to sit down with GOHUNT's founder and CEO, Lorenzo Sartini. We talked about the application season progress, the new GOHUNT Predictive Draw odds, and the looming shakeup that's coming in the Colorado big game draws. This is truly a hot topic that every Western hunter needs to be tracking. For today's tactics segment, we're shifting gears completely. I'm breaking down one of my absolutely new favorite DIY backcountry meal add-ons. This is a true game changer when it comes to fueling your extended hunts. I'm going to walk you through the steps so that you can add it to your meal lineup. Let's get to it. Today, I'm on the move again. I'm down here in Las Vegas visiting GOHUNT. I came down to do another podcast. We just recorded the greatest e-scouting podcast ever, 2.0, with Trail and Brady. It was a 2-hour marathon.
There's a reason I wasn't on that one.
I think you're going to love that one, guys. I think you're going to love it. It was really fun. But now I got a chance to sit down with Lorenzo and talk about some things that are happening right now. We've got some big changes coming in Colorado. The importance of you guys becoming insider members is even more magnified now. Guys, this change in Colorado is a big deal. Yeah. It seems simple to a lot of guys. Well, I don't hunt Colorado anymore. I don't do it. Well, okay. But the trickle effect from this is going to affect what we do in a lot of other states. So I want to get into those things with Lorenzo today. So let's start with Insider because that's really where it starts. We're in application season right now. If you're wanting to hunt elk in the West, guys, if maybe you haven't yet, or maybe you're dreaming of it, or maybe you've done it just once or twice, you've got to get yourself dialed and you've got to get on a system so that you can rotate your applications and so that you can get an elk tag every year or every couple years at least. It's getting harder and harder. There's almost no over-the-counter anymore. And Colorado just is pretty much putting an end to their over-the-counter archery, which we'll talk about. But it's really important that you have your game dialed when it comes to tags and applications. Well, guys, I don't know if you've picked up one of these hunting regulation books lately, but it's like reading a copy of War and Peace. These things are so complicated. They're so detailed, and you could just miss the smallest thing, and it could cost you dearly. You know, do you lose your points on your second choice? Do you not? Is it random? Is it really random? Is it weighted random? All these facets, guys. That's why, I've been trusting GOHUNT for years and years, long before I ever worked with them. Guys, I've been an insider member for, 10 years. I think the year you started, Lorenzo.
And that's a fact. We could pull that. That's
and I'm a paying member.
Yeah.
I'm a paying member, and it's the best $149 I spend every year. I can't recommend it enough. I want to talk about this predictive draw odds you guys are working on a little bit.
So AI is extremely powerful, right? I mean, and it's the world.
It's coming.
Yeah, it's the world we live in, and it is coming in a lot of different ways, but in some of the beginner-ish ways when it comes to data trends. And look, people produce trends. People are habitual behaviorists, right? Like they have their habits, they create trends. It's not hard to see. And with AI is insanely capable of diagnosing those types of trends right now. And obviously with draw odds, that's people. That's people, that's habits, that's, I don't know about you, but I can speak for myself. I rarely change my application strategy because I get to a certain point with enough points that like I'm not going to deviate too far away from my plan, maybe a unit here, a unit there, kind of a thing. So predictive odds, we did it because we know it's within 98% of a certainty, right? And like one of the things for us, we don't ever do things to just say we do it. We do it because we know it's usable. We know it's something that you can hang your hat on and say like, yes, this is a good piece of data that you can take and go do your applications with, right? And that AI is what has made this possible. It's running millions of simulations on trends that have been produced by people over a lot of application periods, over tons of past, open applications. We have all the data for that, and AI is able to trend it out over millions of simulations to essentially produce predictive trends. Now, where this gets thrown off is you led into Colorado.
Yeah.
When states change, yeah, that's probably not, 27 going into 28 when Colorado's making their big change. It's probably not going to be that useful for Colorado, but it is insanely useful for Nevada, Utah, Arizona, places and states that have had their applications the same way for, 5, 10 plus.
With that said, once we get past 28 a couple years and it starts getting the
yeah.
data, it's gonna model that data, right?
Correct.
And it's gonna correct itself.
Well, and in the language model, it's going to say like, hey, here's the rules of, X date to 2027, new rules 28 going forward. So 1 year of that, it's going to know there was a rule change, be able to delineate what created changes, how many people actually switched their application strategy, how many this. The further you get out from 28, it just gets more and more and more foundational from there, if that makes sense.
We're seeing that this point creep. Really, what this really comes back to is this thing called point creep, where a lot of you guys already know what this is. You have 10 points, and the tag took 10 points this year, but there's enough people in the pool that have 10 points or greater that the next year it takes 11 points, and the next year it takes 12 points. And so, like for example, in Colorado, I have an X number of points, and the unit that I want to try to draw this year takes exactly what I have. It drew 100% at my point level.
Yeah.
So I'm nervous. So what I'm saying is, what you really need Insider for, in my opinion, is this predictive stuff is going to be great. But I love the strategy article, man. It's like every year when it's getting close to the draw, within a few weeks of the deadline, you guys always come out with a full review of what's going on, what's happening. I expect you'll be doing the same for Colorado coming up.
Absolutely.
And it'll be very detailed of all the ins and outs. It really eliminates the need to dig into the regulations. I use it all the time. But the other thing I like is the state profiles, where you not only are there strategy articles, but there's a profile on every state, how that state works, how the draw is structured, what's the processes, the random components, the weighted averages, the bonuses, all how that works and how those intricacies work with each one of those states. So those are two things that I use all the time when it's tag season. And that's where we're at right now. And that's why we're doing this show. So Colorado, I've been listening to podcasts. I've been reading stuff you guys have been putting out. We talked yesterday for a great link with Trail about it. He's a wealth of information about this. So this year in Colorado, the archery over the counter is no more. The rifle is still staying over the counter for the second and third seasons. But the archery is now a draw. I think there's going to be a lot of tags. I don't think it's going to be hard to get a tag. But here's the problem. You have to apply for these over-the-counter archery tags as an A tag.
Correct.
And you have to, and you don't have to put it as a first choice. But if you put it as a first choice, you will lose your points. So what's been happening, this is my assumption, like me, I've hunted Colorado a couple of times in the last 10 years, but I've done the over-the-counter while I bank my points. I've been getting my points, and I've been going and hunting. Well, that's what a lot of people have been doing. Well, now there's all these people have all these points, right? Well, now they're faced with, I don't want to put in for this over-the-counter with 10 points because I'm going to lose my 10 points. So they have an option to put it as a second choice, but they may not draw it. Depends on the demand.
Absolutely.
Nobody knows. Nobody really knows how many of these over-the-counter guys and over-the-counter hunters are going to put in for these units. The other thing that's changed is you have to pick a unit.
Yes.
You can't just get the over-the-counter and go wherever you want, in any of the open units. So now you have to pick a unit, and you're hunting that unit only. It's pretty obvious in Colorado on the over-the-counter units. There's some pretty decent units, and there's some crappy units. Well, the good ones just get flooded.
Absolutely.
Right? So Idaho did this a few years ago. You used to be able to buy Idaho over-the-counter tag and go to any of the regions. Well, what was happening is everybody was going to
the good ones.
3 of the 10 regions. Yeah. That's been happening in Colorado as well. So that's going to help alleviate that. But so that's what's happening this year. But in 2028, there's some big changes coming. They're ramping it up over the next couple of years. And when they get to 2028, 50% of the draw tags in Colorado are now going to be random. They're going to go into a random pool, not a true random. Talk about that in a second, but a random component, right?
Correct.
And then 50% are going to be dedicated to the high point holders. Well, that's a radical deviation from the past 30 years in Colorado. I think the max point in Colorado is around 30, 31, right?
Yeah, it's right there.
For 30 years, Colorado's been a point-only state. If you got the points, you get the tag. If you don't, you don't. Now, they've played around with this hybrid draw a little bit, but even the hybrid draw is structured. The non-resident component is almost impossible. It's really more for residents, the hybrid is. But now they're going to pull 50%. Man, Renzo, how would you like to be a guy? Now, I know it needed to be done, guys. I'm not saying it didn't need to be done, but how would you like to have spent the money and 29 years of your life trying to draw unit 61, 201, or one of these?
Yes.
And now you're told, well, the way I understand it, max point holders have a low chance of drawing anyway because there's so many people at max.
Correct.
Is
And
that
that's
right?
that point creep thing.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you're talking about. If there's 5 tags for 15 people, do the math. That's 3 years of point creep before all 15 people are going to be flushed out of that point pool, right? So that's already happening on a much bigger scale than what I just said. So it's already somewhat happening, but a lot of these states have to make a change. And I don't, right now as it sits, I'm a silver lining kind of guy. So this over-the-counter archery thing, I like the fact that if I draw a unit, I know there's not going to be 400 people at the trailhead because, for whatever reason, word got out and the hunting network's small and you're fighting with 400 people at a trailhead that you are coming from out of state to go hunt. Now I know there's only X amount of people, tag holders. I'm a silver lining guy on that, so I like it for that purpose. But now this 2028 change, which is on the heels of this, which you think about how much change this is going to produce between this non-resident, no over-the-counter archery elk going into 2028. Those are 2 massive changes of what's truly going to happen. Because, like you said, yes, 50% of the tags go into a random, but it's not a true random. It's a random with preference to the highest point holders, or
how does that work?
Weight worked. So essentially, if you have 20 tags, or sorry, 20
Points.
20 points, and you go into the pool for a tag, or you go into the random for a tag, you have 20 as opposed to me if I was in there with 1.
So you get 20 tickets in the
You
draw.
have 20 tickets in the barrel as opposed to my 1. So you are being weighted for your points. But I mean, do you think that's worth it for your 20 points? I don't think that's worth it for 20 years of
But what
applying
are
in a
they going to
certain
do? So your son, let's say, well, my son's 15.
Yeah,
Literally, if they don't change it, he could never draw that tag in his lifetime.
correct.
There's no chance that he could ever draw a unit 61 tag.
Yeah,
But you know what I'm saying? The way it is right now, there's so many people in the pool and they give out so few tags, like literally 1 or 2 or 3 tags a year, that there's no chance of a young person coming up and having any chance. These people that run these things, Montana included, I hate to say it, Idaho, you guys have heard my rant on Idaho. These are just not the sharpest tools in the shed. I'm just
and they're
telling
not
you.
hunters. That's the biggest problem. They're not hunters.
How could they not have done the math on this and figured this out, that this was going to get to this point?
Yeah.
Well, so they bought into this thing for 30 years. Now they got to pull the rug out, and there's a lot of kicking and screaming, obviously, which, I mean, you can understand it, but something had to be done. Now, like you, I'm with you. I like the draw for the over-the-counter. It just was getting crazy.
It was getting insane.
Oh, my gosh. I was showing up at trailheads. Now, I had llamas, so I was really I was in better shape than a lot of guys.
Yeah.
I mean, there were 100 rigs at these trailheads.
But you never knew what to expect.
Right.
And I hated that part of it. You never knew, like, is it going to be overrun or are we going to get lucky? And I don't like that feeling. I really don't like it. Now, research becomes an actual, like, you can get ahead with more research and applying for some of these units and knowing that, like, okay, I'm only going to have so many people in the field, and this is a unit that not a lot of people know about from these archery over-the-counter tags. I probably will draw this second choice. Now research becomes much more important for that archery Colorado.
Rolling out and getting a tag and hunting elk the days are almost over for that.
Yes.
You've got to have a strategy. You've got to work a plan. The good news is it is workable.
Yes.
There's a system you can put in for Montana and Wyoming and Idaho and Colorado, and you can earn your points while you're hunting another state. And once you get into the mix, meaning once you start drawing tags, you're going to be able to hunt elk just about every year if you work the system. And then every now and then you draw a glory tag. You work those 4 or 5 states. Even Oregon, you can kind of throw in there too, but you work those states, and then every once in a while you draw a New Mexico or you draw maybe an Idaho control tag, one of the premier tags. So there's a lot of things coming in Colorado. Is there anything else we want to add for Colorado?
Yeah, so Colorado, so that's not just the one change. There's multiple other changes. So one thing that you said yesterday when we were talking about it in passing, which I really liked your concept of it. I know you said the math isn't going to shake out exactly like this, and I agree, but your points are essentially worth half of what they are in 2028 as they are today, because you're taking 50% of the tags.
Right.
It's a very, it's a one-on-one way to look at it, but it's not far off at all of like, yes, that is what's going to happen. Also, the non-resident, non-resident quota split for deer, elk, bear, and antelope is going to 75-25.
Yeah.
And then the point fees are also
used to be
going
35.
Up. It used to be 35.
So they took, not only are they taking it, they're taking half, some of the 10% of the tags away from non-residents.
Yes. And then also your preference point fees are going up, deer, elk, and antelope, non-resident is now $30. And then moose, sheep, goat, the once in a lifetimes there's still a random draw, but there will be a bonus point to the random draw, basically the exact same way Nevada does their overall draw is what Colorado is going to do to moose, sheep, goat. They're once in a lifetime. So there's a lot of changes going on in Colorado on the backs of this archery over the counter for non-residents with elk. But what you said in the beginning of this, and I always try to make this as clear as possible. Yes, it is getting harder, but that doesn't mean there is less hunting. There is still plenty of opportunity. It's just the amount of work to get into having elk tags every year, every other year. Yes, you're having to put in more work, which in turn makes that harder. But the opportunities are still there. You can't rely on a Colorado and an Idaho like you used to be able to.
Yeah.
Now you have to get involved in some of these other states, which yes, makes it more expensive. But the more states you're in, you're setting yourself up you're going to have the hunts. It's just not as easy as it used to get.
And guys, the hunts are going to be better. The quality is going to get better. There's going to be less people. The elk are going to be a little bit less pressured.
Correct.
And what I've heard, guys, this is speculation. What we talked about yesterday was we feel that Colorado is going to put a lot of tags so that this over-the-counter archery is going to be pretty easy to draw, we think.
Yes.
And then they're going to start seeing how that goes. And as they get closer to 28,
take form.
They'll be fine-tuning those volumes. That's good stuff. Thank you, Lorenzo.
Yeah.
And thanks for having me down here. I always love to come down here and see the guys here. I didn't realize it's been a year since I was here last time. But today we're heading out to the range with Kreitzer and Brady. We're going to do some shooting. We're going to film some content around some of the tripods. If you're not running these Kreitzer tripods, you should be looking into those as well.
It's pretty incredible.
They are. He is changing the whole landscape in the tripod. So I'm excited about today. But thanks for joining us, guys, and we'll see you next time. DIY meal preparation, tuna and avocado power salad. I spend well over 100 days in the backcountry each year, consuming over 200 backcountry meals during that time. And let's be honest, what we eat out there matters. Taking control of your backcountry food and meal quality isn't just a preference, it's mission critical. Quality nutrition fuels your performance, recovery, and your overall endurance in the mountains. As you know, retail backpacking meals are expensive and prices keep climbing. While commercial options have improved in taste and variety, they're still loaded with preservatives, inconsistent portion sizes, and now they're subject to supply chain issues. I've been making my own meals for years using both dehydration and freeze-dried methods. I've used both methods extensively, but in the last couple years, I've shifted almost entirely to freeze-drying because of the overwhelming advantages. Yes, the initial investment is higher, but the long-term benefits are well worth it. The saying "you are what you eat" is especially true when you're grinding through the rugged terrain for days on end. Solid nutrition and the right caloric intake can make or break your hunt. I'm planning a ton of future content around DIY backcountry meal preparation, but today I want to share one of my favorite high-protein, high-fat mountain meals, one that I started using this past season. I spent 20 plus days chasing moose in Alaska last year, and my hunting partner, Travis, introduced me to this tuna and avocado power salad, a simple but incredible recipe. Now it's a permanent part of my backcountry food lineup. If you own a Harvest Right freeze dryer, this is a must-try recipe. If you don't have one yet, you need one, and this might just convince you to take the plunge. If you're considering it, be sure to use my Harvest Right affiliate link in the text description below. The tuna and avocado power salad meal add-on is very simple, and it comes with a lot of options. Okay, to start with, you're going to take 50% canned tuna, 50% coarsely chopped avocado. You're going to salt and pepper it to taste. Then you're going to add in the Dijon mustard. You're going to add that to your taste. Maybe you don't want to add it. There are several add-ons that you can put into this recipe to add more flavor and variety. We've added yellow peppers, pepperoncinis, chopped onions, and we've added jalapenos if you like it a bit spicy. Once you've chopped up and got all the components together, you're going to mix everything together coarsely. You don't want to overblend this or finely chop it. I prefer to keep the chunks a little bit on the larger side. It adds for better texture when you rehydrate it. Once I have everything combined, I use a heaping 1 cup measuring cup to form individual patties on the freeze dryer trays. This helps keep the portion sizes consistent and they come out and are ready for packaging. Once it comes out of the freeze dryer, you're going to add 1 or 2 patties into a labeled Mylar bag. You're going to add in an oxygen absorber, and then you're going to seal it up. Now you're set with one of the best high-protein, high-fat snacks you can bring into the mountains. Rehydration is fast and effortless. Just add a small amount of water at first. Mix it and you're good to go. It literally takes just seconds. Here's a tip. Start with very little water. Remember, you can always add more. It's hard to take away. The speed and quality of rehydration with this meal is insane. It tastes so fresh, it delivers serious fuel, and it never gets old. If you want to unlock a whole new world of backcountry meal preparation, a Harvest Right freeze dryer is one of the best investments you can make. Again, you can use my link in the text description below. That wraps up another episode of the Thrive Vodcast. A huge thanks to the team at GOHUNT for having me down in Las Vegas. It's always a blast sitting down with Brady and Trail, Lorenzo, Omar, and even Drew on this trip from Kreitzer. Every trip out there, I walk away with new insights, and this one was certainly no exception. I hope today's tactic segment got you thinking about how you can fuel your hunts. DIY backcountry meals aren't just a way to save money. They're a way to take full control of what you put in your body. If you try out the tuna and avocado power salad, please let me know in the comments section below. And if you're on the fence about getting a Harvest Right freeze dryer, it's time to jump in with both feet. These on-site episodes add a whole new dimension to the vodcast, and I hope you're enjoying them as much as I enjoy making them. The next few weeks are going to be jam-packed. I've got 2 major hunts coming up. By the time this episode drops, I'll be on an epic hunt with Brian Call, Gritty, and then I'm heading out to Africa for what's sure to be an unforgettable adventure with some amazing people. I'll be checking in with some live updates from the field. If it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. I'll see you next time.